Well, March Madness is still technically alive, but high school stuff is over, James. And it was one of those weeks where we both worked like 192 hours, I think. It was exhausting, but a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And there's some memories I'll have from this state basketball tournament. A lot of cool things I saw, but by and large, you didn't see a lot of the buzzer beaters, the dramatics that sometimes the March Madness stuff brings you. But it was a pretty good tournament. How'd you
Well,
see it?
some of us saw one, man. You probably had the game of the tournament, really.
Oh, the Robertson girls coming back.
Robertson girls against Tehachapi. Boy, that was bizarre.
Yeah,
And
that
even
was
watching it, just
that was one of the weirdest innings because they were down 39-31 to Tehachapi, and of course Tehachapi's got a million fans there. They're going nuts.
and
Game
they're
was
going
over.
nuts, and they're being mildly irritating as they always are.
The game was over, and the only way they win that thing is if you get a 4-point play, which they got, and then the coach panicked,
Called the timeout
on the ensuing inbounds. He pulled a Chris Webber, didn't have any timeouts, technical foul, so you get that. Then the inbounds, they turn it over again. Girl throws it off the back of the backboard, so and then that leads to
such a Will Weber move right there.
well, yeah.
That's the kind of thing you would do.
They scored 10 points in 20 seconds, and all of a sudden they got a lead. But the last 32 seconds of the game was chaotic because then Tehachapi had 3 shots to legitimately win the game. It's weird because you go from absolutely done out of it to winning, and then you got to hold on for dear life in the last 32 seconds. It was the weirdest last minute I've ever seen. And then, Robertson turns around and loses the next game, so it kind of walks.
Yeah, they do, of course.
But yeah, it's funny because the kid who hit the game-winning shot, the go-ahead shot, was a little freshman, and she's a heck of a player, and it was fun to watch that. But man, you come back the next day and they lose, and everyone's just in tears. What a weird, wild week that Robertson girls had. But to me, that was the most memorable thing, other than the fact that at the Star Center, at the event center, the basketball court, they wouldn't, every now and then the ball would roll off the court, and it would just make a beeline for the bleachers. And it would go, there was a little spot about yay big, just big enough for the ball to roll under, and it would go under there, and it would just disappear. Right. It would probably go back there 20 or 30 feet up against the wall. So somebody had to crawl under there. They had to go, Matrix level and just crawl back under the innards of the arena to go get a basketball.
Yeah, I saw that. That was actually Sean Finley, Pecos graduate Sean Finley, who's an official who had to crawl under there and get it with somebody's cane. He had to use a cane to get the stinking ball.
That's one of those things you can never foresee if you're the NMA. They put on such a good show, but
they do.
The basketball, that's going to have to maybe get some advertising or some banners or something to go up over that. But yeah, good times. If I had to go under there, first of all, I'd have gotten claustrophobic. I would have panicked. You'd have to wait until I died and drag my carcass out of there. That's what that would have worked. It takes a brave person to crawl under there, because I'm sure there's all kinds of dried Coke and popcorn kernels and.
You don't know what's been under there and how long it's been there.
Yeah. So there you go. That's in a nutshell. That's a recap of the state tournament. There you go.
Yeah, I think we pretty much hit every single important point. So on to the Lobos, right?
Yeah. I'll say this too. Every year, I think the knee-jerk reaction is you want to pick against the top seed, because that's like the chic thing to do. Nine of the 10 brackets had the number 1 seed get to the state championship game. And
8 of them won, right?
Yeah, it was the 4A boys, because whose academy was number 1, or no, St. Pius is number 1.
4A and 3A boys, actually.
3A boys.
Yeah, Robertson was a 2.
Well, St. Mike's got there as the 1.
Oh yeah, I mean 8 of them won. 8 of the.
Oh yeah, I got you. And I tell you, the Robertson boys, that turned into a hell of a story. It was fun.
No, it did.
Robertson, aside from the fact that all the stuff they went through, which we could talk about for days, they had 2-3 guys on that team that absolutely did not pass the eye candy test. You have Michael Marr, you have Jesse James Gonzalez, and then Brian Lucero, I think it was.
Brian Lucero, yeah.
Yeah, they're all about 5'5" maybe, and their uniforms are all super baggy, but those kids can ball. They
can play.
Yeah,
that was the most impressive performance I think I saw from our northern teams all week, was just how they even though St. Mike's knew what was coming and knew what they had to do, they still couldn't do it. I mean, 7 turnovers. I think the big stat that I had, and I talked to a couple of people about it, is coming into the tournament or even into that game, St. Mike's is averaging 17 turnovers a game, or steals a game, I should say. And I think they ended up with what, 5? I mean, I
Yeah.
know there were 7 turnovers, but I think 5 of them were steals. So, and that's the lifeblood of what St. Michael's does is, they turn you over and they get easy baskets off of it. And once that was gone, they really didn't have anything else to fall back on because Robertson did such a great job of taking away the inside game and forcing them to shoot jump shots.
Yeah, and so that was St. Mike's Achilles heel. They just could not hit a
Yeah.
jump shot. They had a couple of guys who could maybe hit an occasional shot, like Nick and Jelly. He could do that.
Yeah.
Sabi could hit an occasional shot, but that was just not a good team. And when you needed a big shot from the outside, especially when Robertson is pinching off the inside,
yeah,
it forces you to do things you just don't want to do, and St. Mike's couldn't do it. And then when we take that press, which was so good all tournament, all season, and it neutralizes it because they've got 3 ball handlers who can beat your press at any point. That takes a huge element out of the way, and then it adds one that you don't want. So just the fact that St. Mike's was as close as they were kind of surprised me because I thought Robertson could have clearly dominated that game, and for the most part they did. The fourth quarter was not particularly entertaining at all because it was all Robertson.
No, it wasn't, and you could just tell that St. Mike's was looking for something, just anything to kind of get them going. And I thought, the move to the small ball lineup in the second quarter kind of helped initially, but Robertson figured things out, and again they kind of got themselves back in. They clearly adjusted their defense, and they started to take away those the dribble penetration and forcing them again, to shoot from the outside, and that's when the comeback kind of fizzled out for St. Mike's.
Well, you were at the 2A championship game at 8:00 on Saturday, which first of all is a huge bummer for you because you couldn't go play Saturday hoops with the group of guys we go with.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Yeah, way to take one for the team.
Yeah, that was a day where I got to sleep until about 7:45, and I woke up like, oh, so glad I don't have to be there by 8.
Yeah, if this wasn't such a family show, I'd have a few choice words for you right about now.
No, but you're the Mesa Vista beat writer. Let's be honest here. You go to Ojo Caliente, you're the mayor. Everyone's glad handing you like, oh, James Barron is here.
God.
I show up there.
Haven't I heard that with just about every small town in northern New Mexico that I'm the mayor of Ojo Caliente. I'm the mayor of Tierra Amarilla. Cuesta. Shoot,
that's the thing is I'm sitting there on press row and I'm just kind of minding my own business. People don't really know who I am, but you're standing there. You'll occasionally come around and talk to us and talk to me and everyone that walks by, hey, James Barron is here. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like meeting a celebrity, which is fine. I like the fact that no one knows who I am. I'd rather live like that. But like, man, this guy, you're like the big stud on campus, man. You're the one that all the cheerleaders want to go out with. You're that guy,
I've never been that guy. I just think by the process of elimination, when you've been around for like 20 some years, eventually people are like, oh, hey, that guy's still here. I think they're just happy that I'm still around.
I hide in plain sight, which is awesome for me. I will legitimately meet some people, and they have no idea who I am, even though I've been around for years. I've interviewed them, but they have no clue. And I think that to me,
the only guy you really know is Yodis.
Yeah, yeah. I'll sit next to James Yodis, and he's kind of popular too. But it's like that's one of my favorite things about the state tournament.
I got to say, you two are a really good pair because you're both a bit curmudgeonly.
You have to be, with the massive paychecks we get. It's easy to be grumpy all the time. Plus, we work a million hours, and we're eating junk food, and it's
Oh yeah, that was terrible. Like by Friday afternoon, after the first 4 games there in the pit, because we had the 2A semifinals with Pecos and Mesa Vista. We had St. Mike's and Robertson and Indian School actually in the 1:30 game. But by about 2:00, I was just dead. I was dead on my feet. I think I walked around the pit and looking for something to eat, and there was nothing appealing. And that's another thing. And that, it's one of those things that kind of gets swept under the rug when you're talking about the competition and everything. But my God, man, I thought pit prices were bad. But when you're paying $12 for a tub of popcorn,
Yeah, Laguna
or
Burger's like
$10 for a burrito that you don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
It said it was a green chili chicken burrito. It tasted nothing like a green chili chicken burrito. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people that were kind of complaining about that. And then we can kind of touch on this too a little bit. And obviously you pointed it out, during the 5A game, but NFHS, I mean, they did I mean, ProView and in terms of broadcasting the games, didn't really have any problems up until the game that mattered the most, the 5A game. And then everybody started losing the signal or losing the stream in the second half, right when San Diego was making their run. And boy, man, did social media just blow up and just
Oh
really
God.
just tear NFHS and ProView Networks a new one.
And they deserve it. Look, you can talk about ProView Networks. I'm sure they're not purposely doing that. They're not sabotaging themselves.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. If this happens during the Roy Mascaro Fort Sumner girls game,
nobody cares. Yeah,
no one
it's
cares.
A mild irritation.
Yeah, because you got 60 people online, but you have the 5A championship game with two teams from Albuquerque, one of which is going for 4 in a row, with a couple of Division I level players on there. And the feed cuts out. And at first I thought it was mine because I'm at home. For some weird reason, I actually tried to watch that game. Even though,
come on, we all know you're a Volcano Vista head now.
But I started watching it, so I thought, well, maybe it's my feed. I'll just reload it. So you have to go through the minute of commercials that they have.
Yeah.
And it comes on and you get the little pinwheel that says nothing's there. And so, yeah, I can see why people are absolutely losing their minds about it because it is literally the biggest game of the year. And no one
could see it.
And here's the thing, like the thing that has really affected attendance at the state basketball tournament is usually when the tournament before the advent of the internet. Thanks, people actually had to go to the games or they had to read the paper to find out the results. But if you wanted to be part of that thing, you had to buy a ticket and go. And now you have the option of staying at home and watching it and listening to play-by-play, and you get stats, and it's just like watching an NFL game. It's easier to watch at home than be there in person. But when the signal goes out, that's when you realize.
Oh, I know. That's when it's like, God, if only I knew somebody who was there, right?
Right. And then that's the thing is you were there, and you're giving our basketball group the play-by-play, which is kind of cool. But like everyone else is probably trying to throw their damn phone up,
their laptop or their TV out the window because they can't because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
it hangs up and Volcano Vista's up 9, and then they come back and they're going to overtime.
Yeah, which by the time the feed came back, they're like in overtime. Well, what happened? How'd that happen? Was there a buzzer beater missed? Oh my gosh! But yeah, thanks, ProView. That was great. What a great way to end the tournament.
Oh, it was, but that's another thing. I'd be curious about seeing, what the attendance figures were like because I think outside of the Kirtland Central Gallup game, the last 4A game, and the 5A game between Volcano Vista and Sandia, which really, I mean, let's be honest, that saved the 5A bracket for the boys' side. Those games were boring. I mean, most of them were blowouts. I think the closest one might have been like 12 points. From the quarterfinals all the way to the semis. And the only saving grace that they had was that last championship game went to overtime. But the rest of them were just terrible. And even the attendance, like, for example, I was really disappointed with the Espanola fans. I mean, we've always hyped them up as being one of the best fan bases in the state. And we were lucky to get maybe, and of course, 6,000 or 7,000 is probably a good crowd for anybody else. But for Espanola, that's darn disappointing. And when you're used to seeing them fill that lower bowl and to bring that kind of energy and that excitement that their Sun Devils feed off of, and oftentimes the other team as well. And you're not getting that. I mean, that was kind of sad to see. I thought the action over at the Rio Rancho Event Center was much more compelling than it was over at the pit, just as far as the environment.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see what the final attendance figures are because usually they draw about 125 to 150,000 fans.
Usually somewhere in that, yeah.
But I would bet that the numbers have got to be dipping since really NFHS has kind of taken over and they start doing these live broadcasts of every single game. Because if I'm living in Tatum and I'm thinking, hey, maybe I'll wait till Saturday for the championship game. Why would I drive all the way up here to do that? Especially with gas prices the way they are, with everything else elevated the way it is. It's easier to stay at home and pay that $13 subscription fee, whatever it is, and then the internet goes out, and the signal goes out, and then you're like,
yeah,
"The
that's
hell's
the
wrong with
that's
this
the
country?"
downside to all of that. That
Yeah,
is the downside to all of that. You know, I know you pointed out we pointed out the part about the Robertson game, and I think the other one that probably bears talking about is Mesa Vista in the
yeah,
two-way boys game, because I mean that again, you talk about a team that was done and cooked. I mean, Mesa down 15 with 5 minutes left in the game. They finally put on that trap, and they forced Texaco into a bunch of turnovers and some missed shots, and they get on a roll. And then you end the game with the guy that literally carried you to the finish line, and Santiago Martinez. You know, he scored the last 8 points of the game. He had 10 of his 23 points in the fourth quarter to get him back into it. And he goes for a jump shot with no time left, and I mean, literally no time left, and nobody has any timeout, so you can't stop the clock. You know, I never quite. I get what he was saying when he said that he was trying to get the and one on the shot, but you know, if you're a well coached team, you recognize that, you know, they can't stop the clock, so you got to defend against the three. And you know, it was kind of an odd way to end the game,
yeah.
with a made two when they needed a three.
Yeah, I would imagine everyone on that bench was losing their minds when they saw that, because look, everyone in the building, everyone watching it online, assuming the signal didn't go out, knows that you need a three-pointer. You drive in, you hit a baseline jumper from 12 feet. It's like, well, that sure was a nice shot, but it doesn't matter, man. We needed a three. So what a lousy way to end that game. And if you look at the replay, even the look of the Texaco kids were just like, I
Like,
can't believe you just did that.
just did that, yeah.
You just handed us a Christmas gift. And the rationale, I get it, going for you want to do the and one, but the only way to guarantee 3 points is to shoot a
It's
3-pointer.
three. Yeah,
Shoot three. But
yeah,
hey, you're 16, 17 years old. Your instinct is to go for the easy bucket, and when it opens up like that, he just sees the line. He's probably not thinking in the same lines that the rest of us are. Just jack up.
yeah. That's true. That's true. You know, and it's an unfortunate thing. You know
Yeah,
that. You know, hopefully the kid will learn. And here's the thing with Mesa, they've got four of their starters coming back next year. Santi's going to be one of them. If that group comes back and some of the younger kids step into those roles that the seniors are going to vacate, this is going to be back. You know, they'll have an opportunity to get back to that championship game, and maybe, you know, make up for what they didn't do this year. You know, and it would have been kind of cool just because, um, you know, it had been 23 years since Mesa had been in the championship game. I think it had been 28 years since they'd won it. You know, you have the parallels between Jordan Gallegos and his dad was on the '97 championship team that they last had, and then obviously too, I think this would have been the perfect year for it because the coach of that team, Jerry Villarreal, passed away back in February. So you know, this would have been a nice cherry on top as far as you know, kind of putting all these little interesting historical points together, and bringing Mesa Vista home a blue trophy. But as it is, you know, it ended up being what it was, and they'll have an opportunity to do it, much like St. Mike's will next year. I mean, let's be honest, they're going to be the team to beat. I think for the next 2 or 3 years, we've seen their junior varsity and the C team players that they have. I mean, that program is loaded and ready to roll for the next 3 or 4 years at least.
yeah. Them and Robertson, you can almost start penciling
And
in football and
Robertson loses a
basketball.
lot. They're going to lose a lot. They lose the Gonzalez twins. They're probably going to lose George Smith. He's going to the
Yeah,
scuttlebutt last 10 months has been he's moving to Albuquerque. He's going to play for Sandia. You know, I think that's probably going to happen. And if it does occur like that, Robertson's definitely taking a huge dip.
yeah.
Um, to me, I mean, it's really St. Mike's title to lose next year, unless somebody else steps up. And I don't know. I wrote a column a little bit on that today, just about what northern teams to look forward to next year, and obviously St. Mike's is on that list.
But George Smith going to Sandia too it makes Sandia maybe the team to beat. Maybe next year's the
Oh,
year.
definitely. Well, I mean, you look at what happened. I mean, Volcano's going to lose Aguino.
Yeah,
I'm not sure Lund is at that level yet where he can kind of step into Aguino's role and take over that. And they've got some great pieces. They're still going to be they're still going to be the team to beat. But if you add George Smith, and we saw him 3 times this year, 4 times actually, and we know how dynamic of a player, heck of an athlete, and a great shooter too, man. He was pulling up from 25, 26 feet at times and
yeah,
knocking down shots. You add him with what Sandia has with Gad Harris and those other guards. boy, they're going to be held to defend next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, he'd be a good football player too. Kid is so
Yeah,
fast. And
absolutely.
track and field, and that's the thing is that you kind of understand the rationale. If the end goal for him is to become a college athlete, if you're going to get recruited, it's a lot easier to get recruited from a 5A school in the middle of Albuquerque
It
than
is
it
a
is
3A.
from a 3A school in Robertson. Yeah, so you can't blame him for that, but at the same time, a huge loss for Robertson if it does happen. Of course, that's the elephant in the room. No one talks about it openly. It's always in hushed circles. Well, George Smith is gone, but yeah, it looks like he's out of there. So
yeah, absolutely. But
of course, now that state basketball over is James. It just as we're recording this, the wind is blowing about 900 miles an hour outside.
oh yeah,
Dust
we're
is
just excited for baseball and softball and track and field and
yeah,
golf. Oh my God, play golf in this weather, boy, man.
yeah. I can't wait for the St. Mike's baseball tournament where the weather is always miserable for that thing. So
Well, it's nice that they moved it into April to where it's not as bad.
it'll still be terrible though.
Oh, it will be.
Like,
Yeah.
and then we have state cheerleading competition this weekend, which I'm gonna have to skip that one. So I'm gonna leave the state cheerleading championships to you, there, buddy.
Hey, you were gonna skip it even if the Lobos didn't make it to the NCAA tournament. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I'm getting a little sick. I don't think I'll be able to work. Yeah, for the uneducated, the state cheerleading championships is well attended as it is. It is a very well attended event. It is the least media friendly NMAA activity or a sport that.
Well, watch it, Will. They watch this too, man. They're
But it is true though. You go there and you're trying to cover it as a sport. And we are pre-programmed into just being inundated with stats and trends and all that. Well, you go to this thing, you sit around all day, and they don't tell you who's doing what. They have no idea what the scores are until the end of the day, and then they announce it, but they don't tell you how they got that score because everything is subjective.
Oh yeah, completely subjective.
And so you're tasked with covering a team that performs at say 1:15, and they don't put out the results until 8:00 that night.
8:00, yeah.
So you're trying to interview kids who everything is subjective. Well, how'd you do? Well, we performed this, the pyramid, and this and that.
Yeah.
No idea.
We did great, but you end up 17th.
Yeah, no idea if you're interviewing the right people or you're doing the right thing. And plus, it's like a foreign language to you and I because I was never a cheerleader. I don't know if you were a cheerleader, but I was never a cheerleader. No. So I don't understand any of the dynamics of it. I've had a daughter who was a cheerleader, but even then I barely paid attention. So I don't really understand any of that stuff. So yeah, it's I feel, oh gosh, the mantle falls to you this year. So yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. They love me more than you, especially after this comment here, man. If you'd shown up this weekend, I'm sure you might have gotten like one of those polls that the flag girls have right in the face, you know. He's showing up with a broken jaw for next week's edition.
The best thing about the cheerleading stuff is the dance team. St. Mike's is always a good story. The Pony Express.
And that's kind of our go-to, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and the most fascinating thing I ever had with them, other than the fact that Lydia Sanchez, she should be on the Mount Rushmore of coaches in northern New Mexico because she's done an amazing. She's built a true dynasty there. But
there was that one year with St. Mike's coaches. Let's be honest.
Right.
That's pretty much all what Mount Rushmore of coaches would be.
Yeah. Well, it was the year that they I believe they finished second to Hope one year and. But their uniforms, the girls had to get sewn into their uniforms. And so my first question is, what happens if you have to go to the bathroom? And she's like, yeah, you don't.
You don't. Yeah.
Imagine getting sewn into your uniform. You're like, Coach, I gotta go to the bathroom. And they're like, no, sorry.
Yeah, well, you should have thought about that before you got into it.
Told you to go before we left. It's the same time, same story every time. So yeah, good stuff.
That'll be fun. Meanwhile, you get to enjoy the sunny and lovely city of Cleveland, Ohio, for at least 2 days.
Yeah,
and maybe even 4.
Cleveland. Well, and I was just in researching a story for tomorrow. One of the most popular pick in the 2 versus 15 seeds is Bryant beating Michigan State tomorrow or Friday, which I can't see happening. We were talking about the Big Ten champion, which is they look loaded for bear this year. But the thing is, Lobos are playing Marquette. You still have to get through Marquette, a team that was in the top 25 all season. So, yeah, it might be a quick turnaround for Los Lobos this weekend. But, it's like I wrote into the story the other day. Marquette is a team that loves the three-point shot. And traditionally, teams that love the three-point shot are vulnerable in March, especially in March. Yeah. They've taken almost 300 more three-point shot attempts than the Lobos have all season. Their star player, Kam Jones, who was today named second-team All-American, he's made, I believe it was 208 three-point shots this season. The entire Lobo roster has made 230. And so this guy shoots a lot of threes. And they're just like any other team. Like Utah State is another team that shoots a ton of threes. If they struggle, it could be a long day.
Yeah.
And you look at what the Lobos do. Not that I'm wearing my cherry and silver flag and draping it all over the place here, but the Lobos play good defense. They're an underrated defensive team. They play with pace. They're one of the fastest paced teams in the country, and they don't rely on a three-point shot. So if two of those three elements come together with Marquette maybe struggling a little bit, because Marquette's going to take 10 to 15 more three-point shots than they will the entire game.
Yeah.
Who knows? But if you're looking at matchups, absolutely the key thing about that game is True Washington, who gives up 2 inches to Kam Jones. Kam Jones is about 6'5". True is going to have to probably guard him the majority of the time. And you might flip off with Borovichinen, who's the 6'9" wing. The only thing Borovichinen can do is actually play a little bit of defense because he's not very good at anything else. And then you might throw CJ Nolan in there, who's a guy who just he's like a human pinball. He'll go in there and play defense.
He bounces around all over the place, man.
Yeah, and so everyone, you see all these national pundits saying, "Well, it's going to be Kam Jones against Donovan Dent." I don't think either Shaka Smart or Richard Pitino wants to match those two up together because, those are that's the offense for each team. You don't want to neutralize those two guys, but we'll see. Marquette's a tough matchup, and you're probably going to go to Cleveland, and there's going to be a lot of people from Milwaukee coming on down to watch that thing. There'll be a lot of Marquette fans, but as we've seen, you and I have both been to the NCAA tournament, especially the further away you get from home. That home site usually adopts the team that is from really far away or the dramatic underdog.
The underdog, yeah.
And so they might see New Mexico like, oh, how cute. We have foreign teams here. Look at their bright red uniforms. Let's root for them.
Since when did they open it up to international teams?
Right. They even have a Spanish name on that team, the Lobos, whatever that is. It's a little groundhog or whatever it is. And so that's the thing is you might have some of the people in Cleveland, since they're so depressed because they're living in Cleveland, they might be enamored by this team from New Mexico, or whatever our state's going to be called now, New America, or because they're probably going to have to rename the state now. Stranger things have happened. I think the Lobos actually have a punching chance, but yeah, man, you got to root for Bryant. If you can root for Bryant, you can run into Bryant in the second round. Hey, you know what?
And don't get Lobo fans' hopes up, man. That's probably the worst thing that could happen is that Bryant would actually upset Michigan State. The Lobos win, and you get that 10-2 matchup in the round of 32 with a chance to go to the Sweet 16. And everybody's going to assume that the Lobos win.
And then lose to Bryant.
10-15 matchup, I should say. Sorry.
That would be the most Lobo thing ever. Lose to Bryant of all teams.
Yes, man. And then you can just add to the lore, man. It's like move over, Cal Fullerton. It's Bryant is Bryant and Harvard. Harvard can set itself aside too, man. Losing to a 15 seed when you got a chance to get to the Sweet 16. Oh my God. I think people might actually turn in their Lobo cards at that point.
Well, especially with the potential matchup of having San Diego State get to the Sweet 16 because they're on the top half of that bracket.
Yeah.
I really like San Diego State's chances against North Carolina in that play-in game in Dayton. I think because
you're such a Mountain West homer.
Well, San Diego State cannot throw it in the ocean. They're so god awful on offense, but they're one of the top. They're probably the top defensive team in the country. And North Carolina, we all know it. North Carolina doesn't belong to be there. So if they can win that game, you're playing Ole Miss. That could potentially be a winnable game. You could have San Diego State and the Lobos playing in Atlanta in the Sweet 16. And I tell you, if that happens, the world will cave into a black hole and we'll all just disappear because the Lobos will be in the Sweet 16.
It'll never happen, man. We'll never get there.
No.
Wouldn't that be the Lobos' luck, man? To get to the Sweet 16, and then the end of the world comes on Monday.
The most realistic thing that's going to happen is they lose to Marquette by 16 points, and Richard Pitino announces that he's going to Villanova by Sunday. By Sunday, he's cleared out. He's packed all.
Let's see. Okay, well, let's talk about that. I mean, you kind of bring up an interesting point, and just tooling around on social media, man. His name is getting out there a lot.
Yeah.
I've heard Virginia. I think Indiana. I've heard too. Villanova. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of other jobs that open up too. But when you hear more of this smoke and everything, you got to think. I mean, the Pitino era is close to an end. Whether it's this year or even next year, you can't think he's going to last much longer.
Yeah, you can't blame him either. You really can't. He's done amazing stuff here in 4 years, and if he leaves for what is supposedly a better opportunity, then all the power to him. You can't begrudge the guy for doing that. Of course, the Lobo fans, being what they are, they're gonna be all butthurt, and they'll say, "Oh, you traitor! You turned court. How could you do that?" But look, he's a college basketball coach with a name. He's got a reputation, and he's on his way up. So if he leaves, he leaves. And then the question becomes, well, Donovan Denton loves playing for the guy. So does Donovan Denton?
Yeah.
Does Drew Washington leave? What happens to all these other guys? So it could be a complete rebuild for next season. But yeah, I think it'd be a lot. It'd be a lot of fun to see him at Villanova. I don't know how realistic that's going to be, but if you have two Patinos in the Big East, one of them in Philly, the other one in New York City, whoo, buddy, that would be absolutely gigantic, huge. I know Central Florida has been talked about, but the thing is, he kind of coached at Minnesota, which is a mid to lower level Big Ten team. Central Florida is a mid to lower level Big 12 team. Do you really do you want to go back to what is basically the Florida version of Minnesota? It doesn't seem like a great fit. In Virginia, for all like they won a national championship, they've been a number one seed a couple times. That's a hard school to recruit to because the academics are off the charts. You can't exactly bring in that kid who's like, struggling academically, but he can throw down dunks from the top of the backboard. So I don't know if Virginia's a good fit for him either. But over the course of the next 2-3 weeks, you're going to see a ton of jobs open up, and he's going to be mentioned at a lot of them too. And you and I've talked about this too, but the end of the season comes so suddenly in college basketball. You have all this access to these guys, and it's this daily coverage, and you're always around them. When the end comes, everything shuts down, and then that's when all the rumor and speculation runs rampant because it's not like you can just call up coach and go sit down with them. They all go into hiding. They're taking the next steps to either build for next season or leave.
And I wouldn't be surprised probably within if I remember correctly, when Alfred left in 2013, it happened within about 2 weeks, and that includes him signing an extension. And within that time frame, he actually ended up in UCLA. So I would imagine it would be something similar. Whether it be a week, maybe even 2 weeks. And the other thing too is, as badly as Lobo fans want to get to the Sweet 16, I think if they did do that, I think that the chances of Pitino leaving just become that much higher because obviously he's proven his chops at a solid basketball a solid basketball school, and obviously places like Villanova and Virginia and whatever other Power Four conferences open up. That's the guy that they want is a guy that's proven that he can build contenders.
Yeah, and then the question is, do you bring Steve Alford back? Because man,
$1 million question.
Steve, Lobo fans were so bitter when Steve Alford left, but now the possibility of maybe bringing him back, the conversation between Lobo fans and Steve Alford would be like, all right, Steve, I know you broke up with me to go out with a prom date from the other school across town, and I'm still really heartbroken about that, but yeah, let's try it again. Let's go for round 2.
Yeah, I just don't see that. Honestly, as cool of a storyline that would be to see the prodigal son return, I don't see it happening. It never works out well the second time around. It rarely does.
Well, if he comes back, and I think I've even said this on our previous podcast, but he would do his introductory press conference. They do it in the top level of the pit where they always do. where they invite the media. They got fans, they got the players, they got boosters. There's like 250, 300 people in there, and they're all super happy. And, the band is playing and they got balloons and all that stuff. And he would come in for his introductory press conference, and he would say, I can tell you this is how it's going to go. He'll stand up there with his perfectly coiffed hair and his little swagger, and he'll be like, I left here the first time to go for what I thought was the best opportunity for me and my family. And I've always loved New Mexico. It's always been special to me and my wife. And now that we're both empty nesters and I've had an opportunity to move on, I've gained some perspective, and I am coming back here to retire as a Lobo. And then everyone would be like, oh my God, Steve Alford, you're so awesome. Everyone would clap. Grown men in the back room would start crying. People would be hugging randomly. And that's the thing is the Alford era 2.0 would begin. And then, but do you bring back Craig Neal? Because Craig is the guy. Yeah. Craig's the guy that you handed the keys to, and what he did is he got a giant 5-gallon bucket of gasoline and lit fire to Camelot. He destroyed this place. But can you bring back Batman without Robin? Because he's Robin,
No, he is Robin, and I don't think that the question has ever been. I think the guy has shown he's clearly a good recruiter, but I think his ability to grow and develop basketball players and develop a cohesive team was always in question. I think he's a good right-hand man, and it's worked at Nevada, and it's worked when they were together at UNM. I mean, it's hard to break those two guys up, but then you guys got to ask yourself, does Neil really want to come back after the way he left? I'm sure the last place he wants to go is Albuquerque again. Yeah. It's like, yeah, Steve, you go. I'll take care of things in Nevada, and I'll turn this place into a dumpster fire, and maybe I'll come back.
Yeah, Nevada could hire him, and they would just go straight to. They would just fast track to San Jose Stateville. That's what they would do. But it would be interesting to see who the candidates would be. I think Pitino's top assistant, Isaac Chu, would actually be considered here. Like, I really
would they really consider somebody on the staff? I mean, we've seen what happened before. Yeah. You brought up Neil.
That's the thing is that I think maybe they'd be a little reluctant to give an assistant coach who's never been a head coach the keys to the kingdom, because that's a risky thing.
Will Wade of the world don't fall off, don't always fall off trees,
Yeah, well, Will Wade, Craig Smith, the former Utah State coach, I think would be a viable candidate to come here. But who knows? With the new athletic director with ties to Texas and the Southeast Conference, you just never know. Like, that was my thought that when they were looking for a football coach, they would bring in some sort of assistant from the Southeastern Conference. And what do they do? They bring in the guy from Idaho.
And I think that might be what you see here too. I mean, you see a lot of, it was interesting just in reading up on stuff. And I think, there are a lot of Division II coaches that I think would be viable candidates there at UNM, in part just because as cutthroat as Division I is, Division II is just as cutthroat, just in terms of just the quality of teams that you see there. And you get a highly successful Division II coach. I mean, honestly, I think it's probably a greater accomplishment for those programs to get to the semi-conference, or the regional semis, or even to the Final Four, because there are just so many darn good Division II teams. You have to be, you have to do your job every year, in order to be able to continue to keep those programs at a high level. And I think that might exactly be where you see the next coach coming from, is not necessarily a Division I coach.
Well, you see that with Drake. Drake's doing the exact same thing. They had a coach who won 4 national championships in Division II. Yep. So basically what you're saying is Mike Dominguez is now a candidate at the UNM. So James Bro, you heard it here first.
Yeah, I heard it here first. Yeah, I'm pitching Mikey, man. I'm pitching Mikey. I want his press conference to be right there at the Lobo, right there on the pit floor, and have him recreate that shot.
Yeah. So there you go. You've heard it here first. Mikey Dominguez, new head coach at the University of New Mexico. Brought to you by James Barron.
There you go, man. Hey, I get to kill 2 birds with 1 stone right there. It's a local kid and it's a capital kid, sir. So, I'm staying in my lane.
Hey, at least we have an inside with the coach, though, because he likes both of us. We both knew him.
Well, he says he does. Who knows, man? Once he becomes big time, he probably doesn't return our calls or even accepts our offers for drinks.
Well, imagine going from coaching at New Mexico Highlands, where he's probably making $70,000 a year, to making over $1 million at UNM. That's what you call paid. getting paid, Mike. All right, good job.
That's right, man. That'd be a hell of a jump, though.
It'd be a quantum leap. Yeah, but we will see. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to reprise our little podcast. I forget the name of it again. Sports Den.
Yeah, something like that.
Sports Den.
Am I included in that one, or is that strictly going to be
No,
a solo job with Will Weber?
no, I need you there, man. I need you. I'm going to be in Cleveland. I'm going to be sitting courtside with the Lobos basketball team. They have an open practice, I think, right around the time we usually do the podcast. But they have an open shoot around in Cleveland's arena, and we'll do a podcast. We'll talk all about the Lobos, which we never.
Right, I'll be sitting in a bar somewhere in Albuquerque, just just an honor review, man. Either that, or I'll just hang out at the pit and wear my tie.
Yeah, well, and is everyone always thinks that the lifestyle of a sports writer is this super glamorous thing, but when I go on the road, just like last year, I will never see anything other than the inside of the arena or the inside of my hotel room. There's no Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's no going down to see LeBron's old haunt in Akron.
It's not like you're going to see a Cavs game since they're not even in town that weekend. So
not like I can go check out the Brown Stadium or Progressive Field or anything like that. I will make a 10-block I'll carve a path between the Media Hotel and the Cavaliers Arena. So
you're going to find that one Starbucks that you can go to in between here and there.
I hate Starbucks, man. Just give me coffee from a gas station. Give me some Cleveland motor oil coffee. That's all I need. So Thursday we'll come back. We'll do a fun thing from Cleveland. We'll see. I don't know if that's ever been said either. A fun thing from Cleveland. That might be the first time anyone's ever said that.
Yeah. You've made internet history. Actually, you just might have made history. Period by saying that.
Isn't that where the river caught on fire?
Yes, it is. Yeah, they don't like to talk about it, but you can bring it up all you want there, dude.
It's like, well, hey, we're from Albuquerque, where they made the most popular TV show ever about a guy killing people through meth. So it kind of evens.
Dude, you should give out like your email address and see if anybody from Cleveland will send you any suggestions as far as where to go besides Lake Erie, and not to see Lake Erie, but to throw yourself in it.
I want to experience the cold weather and the gray skies of Cleveland.
Dude, you're gonna see it, dude. I told you this last night, in text, but dude, you're gonna have to bundle up, man. It's gonna be in the 40s and 50s especially if you make it to the weekend.
Oh man,
it's not gonna be a pleasant day in Cleveland.
And that sucks too, because I if I could do this year round, I would wear gym shorts every single day, and I pretty much do.
Not gonna do that.
Yeah, I wear gym shorts probably 337 days a year. So yeah, I'm gonna try it. We'll see.
You need to make file a complaint with the NCAA about not putting the Lobos in like Wichita or Denver, just because that would have made your life so much easier.
Yeah, Mountain West is hosting the regional in Denver, and there's not a single Mountain West team there.
So I know, isn't that awesome?
They're sending Wisconsin and Michigan to Denver, and they send New Mexico to Cleveland. So
shouldn't that be the other way around?
Yeah, try to make sense of that. You could have had more fans, you could have sold more tickets, but hey, you know what?
Maybe they could take a lesson from the NMAA. The NMAA at least knows how to schedule things.
Yeah, hopefully the internet doesn't go out. So when you're watching TBS on Friday, the internet doesn't cut out just like ProView networks. So,
well, I've already got myself plotted out that 2.5, 3 hours time slot there from 5:30 to 8:30 to watch the Lobos and get royally disappointed again.
Man, I tell you, though, the first weekend of the state or the NMA or the NCAA tournament is just one of the best weekends of all time, because it's just a lot of games and usually there's a lot of drama and there's always something unexpected going on. So, oh man,
this is probably the best 2 weeks of the year for us, man, because you go the state tournament for basketball, and then you go right into the NCAA tournament, especially when the Lobos are involved in it. It's been a while since we've had to enjoy this because we had that 10-year drought without seeing the Lobos get this far. But now that it's here, it's like, geez, man, it's maybe not so much for you, because I know that only gives you like maybe a day to kind of recharge your batteries and stuff.
Yeah. I took yesterday off. It was nice. I sat up
right day, man. I'm going to be sitting here listening to the wind howling for the next 3.5, 4 hours.
I took yesterday off and I just stared at the ceiling for about 4 hours. I felt like I was on the come down yesterday. Like when you text me in the middle of the afternoon, it's like, you have anything for today? Like, No.
Oh,
I'm gonna sit here and
I even
drool.
got that much out of you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and drool and maybe stare at my blank TV screen for a couple hours. That's about it.
Yeah, and now you got to figure out how to. Now you got to pack.
Yeah,
You,
packing's
you got to
easy.
pack for 4, but expect only 2.
Yeah, gym shorts are easy, man. I can pack everything in a grocery bag, so I'll be fine. I'll be
And
that
your
whole
bathrobe, man,
like,
that's easy.
I'll show up at the airport with my Walmart grocery bag full of clothes, and I'm like, "You must be from New Mexico." It's like, yeah,
That's right.
I am. How'd you
And,
fit?
you're gonna want that. You're gonna want that in your carryover, right?
Like, just carry everything right there, man. That's all I need. I don't even need a hairbrush, as you can tell. This is
I
actually
can't
brush
wait to see
hair.
how you're gonna look on Thursday when we do this. And what are we gonna do if they win, man? What are we gonna? Are we gonna have to do another one on Saturday just to hype up the excitement?
We might have to.
Yeah,
Good night. If they get to Atlanta, it's going to be a nightmare, man. I tell you, Lobo fans are going to be
especially if
beside themselves.
what you prognosticated comes true, man. We're gonna have to do that.
I might have to drive to Atlanta because I don't know if the Mexican has enough money to fly us. They might send us both out.
Well, you might have to get a crop duster instead of an actual airline, but
Yeah, yeah. All right. So what we'll do is we'll shut it down. We told show killer Matt we keep this thing to about 20 minutes. I think we're probably close to an
yeah,
hour.
we're
Right?
probably about 15 minutes over it already. So
Oh man, we blew right by deadline again. So
that's right. That's what we do best, man.
yeah, we will come back Thursday. Different backdrop for me. Hopefully, if I can go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, awesome. Even though actually the Beastie Boys are in the Hall of Fame now. I was a huge Beastie Boys fan, so maybe I could find the Beastie Boys exhibit
There
if
you
I
go.
should do that.
Dude, we should do this, but we should do this podcast right next to Jeff Grammer while he's trying to do his.
Jeff Grammer, yeah. You know, the thing about Jeff is I've seen him. He's got a little tiny ring light he puts right above his camera,
Yeah.
and so it makes him look really pretty. I don't
You have no we have no filters on this,
Matt
man.
Dalside is going to have to get me a ring light for the camera. We have to start looking better.
Yeah,
Look,
people are
man,
gonna think you're an angel by the time he's done with you. Like you've ascended to heaven, especially if the Lobos win.
we will see. So Thursday we'll be back. We'll talk about the NCAA tournament. We'll be right in the middle of that first day. It'll be a lot of fun. So
It should be.
yeah, on to spring sports, on to the NCAA tournament. So goodbye,
Right.
high school basketball, and we will see high school hoops next November. So all right, that's
Right.
we'll do the cut sign and we'll end this thing right here.
Yeah. I was just gonna go with an awkward pause and just see if Matt would just actually just like fade us out slowly.
Fade to black.